Oh, Femi, I need to chat to you actually.
You always say that, but you don't.
No, I do. I do. All right, we're gonna chat. I'll phone you after this thing.
Not serious, man.
We're live anyway. What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of Cut the Chat. I know that we kind of announced that we was gonna do like a birthday episode for Lee. Ish.
Lee's not here.
Lee's not well, man. Lee, he said he's been on his stomach all day. Maybe he ate something dodgy.
I don't think he wanted to come. I don't think he likes Cut the Chat.
Why you saying that? He loves us. Don't say that. I know that we can't.
He's not feeling them or us.
He ain't feeling the man them.
No.
Damon is at a Zoom antenatal class, which I found really funny.
How did they do that, bro?
We need to find out. We're waiting for him. He's gonna come. He'll be coming in a second. So it's like loads of pregnant women sitting around the webcams and getting their belly. Actually, we shouldn't downplay antenatal classes. Have you been? Did you go to one?
Did you go to them?
Nah.
You didn't?
Nah. Did you?
So why are you saying we shouldn't downplay it? You're just trying to be like PC because you work at the BBC.
Yeah, I suppose, but also they might be really important. Did you?
I mean, I went to one. Like it was like it felt so pointless.
Why?
It just did.
You can't just say it felt pointless. Like what made it feel pointless?
Huh?
What made it feel pointless? What do you do during it?
Like they teach you breathing, you talk about the different types of births you want. But I didn't go to loads anyway. I just went to one. And so I'm probably a bad person to speak to.
Oh, I need to know about these Zoom antenatal classes.
I mean, we got doctors coming on today.
Oh, yeah. True. We got doctors coming on today. Today we're gonna delve deeper into this thing. We did say we were going to talk about COVID, the vaccine, and I'm sure loads of people have got questions. So I'm very excited to speak to the doctors. How are you feeling about this stuff now? Like where are you sitting?
I'm just tired of the lockdown, bro. I'm tired of like the way of working. I'm in my house. I just want to move on in life, man. I'm tired. I'm done with it, man. I just want to move. I just want to start doing other stuff, like going out and seeing you lot. Do you get what I'm saying? I want to be able to like just live a normal life now, man.
We've only just started though. This is like, what is this, week 2 or something?
Yeah, but it's not really week 2 though. It's been like lockdown's been ongoing really.
I know, but this lockdown 3 just started 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, but then things weren't even open around Christmas anyway. So like it wasn't even normal. So all you could do was like chill with people a little bit before, but it wasn't, it just feels like Groundhog Day.
Does this monotony of staying in the house and everything being locked off make you feel like you just want to get the vaccine over and done with?
I'm not anti-vaccine. I don't really care now.
I know. So you'll take it tomorrow if it was offered to you?
I mean, I don't know if I'll take it tomorrow, yeah.
That means you're anti-vaccine then?
But I'm not anti it. I want to be clear. Like I'm just like, because it's like I've taken other vaccines in the past, like, and so why would I be against this one? And
so why wouldn't you take it tomorrow then?
Why wouldn't I take it tomorrow? Because it's still too early. There's like more important people to take it than me.
Okay, that sounds like a cop out, but I hear you.
But to be fair, like I'm not. I don't really see a way out of not taking the vaccine anyway. Mm-hmm. I just feel I'm just a bit tired of even if I took the vaccine tomorrow, though, it doesn't bring us out of lockdown.
But you're becoming part of the solution to getting us out of lockdown.
Listen,
because if everybody has the same attitude as I'm going to wait for everyone else, then no one's going to take it.
No, but this is the thing. The point you're missing is that we're not even going to get the vaccine till the end of the year because I'm so far down the priority list anyway. So like people like myself are not going to be invited till later on in the year anyway. So it's not even an option. My friend's trying to buy the vaccine right now.
Swear down.
Yeah.
How much is that on the black market? How much
you can't buy it. You said you can't find it anywhere. Yeah, we can hear you. My friend's trying to buy the vaccine and he's like, no, I can't even buy it. Like I can't even find it anywhere to buy.
They're talking about getting the teachers.
No, you're not recording.
Oh shoot. Talking about
again.
No, we're fine. It's fine. Don't worry. I'll rip it off YouTube.
Do that every week, and then people will be sending us messages.
Everyone leave me alone, man. Do you know what we should do? We should actually apply or get a Cut the Chat intern. You lot want to all complain about me not doing it. Why don't you lot do it? You listeners out there. Is anybody out there that can do this stuff for us? Then please, we'd love to have you.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we won't pay you, but like we'll give you stuff.
All right, before we get the doctors on, Damon, explain to us a Zoom antenatal class, please. How does it work?
Like our Zoom Cut the Chats, but there's just one person hosting, giving information and telling you stuff that you might need to know, you might not need to know, all of that stuff.
Do you see all the other pregnant women as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so all of you are on camera. Oh wow. Was it fun?
Someone.
Was it fun?
You want my honest opinion?
Yeah.
How I look at it, a lot of it is common sense.
Right.
But you know what I mean? There's a couple of things that I didn't know, but the majority was common sense. And they give you little things, they give you little plans that you can use and stuff. You know, it's informative. It is informative, but you know, from the baby lands to baby lands, isn't it? Like obviously these things are set up to make your whole experience a lot easier and a lot more pleasurable and bearable. And a lot of it, you know, the lady was talking about stuff that dispelled the myth of labour's painful, it's mad, it's wild, there's bare blood everywhere, all of that kind of stuff. So, you know, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Okay. Should we get the doctors in? Let's get the doctors on. Femi, do you want to introduce them?
So yeah, so we've got Adwoa Danso, who's a GP. She's like a dear friend of mine. She's also got like an Instagram thing called the Clinic Diaries, where she's like talks about issues affecting mainly Black people within like the health system. And then you've got Busui, who's family member, extended family, and he also is he works for NHS England, and they're not on as representing the NHS or the government or whatever. They're on as themselves. Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that.
They are independent parties.
They're independent parties. They're like you on the BBC right now.
Right.
They're on as themselves. They're not speaking for Boris or any of these people. But I just thought it would be good, like, rather than us having these conversations every week, talking about like, I don't know, like the vaccine and the virus and blah, 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 and all of this stuff, like, you know, from like sort of like entertainers' perspective, I thought it'd be good to get the real people live and direct.
Awesome. Hi, Dr. Danso.
Hi, how are you?
We are good, man.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your Tuesday evening to speak to us.
No problems at all. I think it's a really important conversation, to be honest. And I missed the first bit that you were saying, but it's one of those things that's just been going on and on and on and on. And I think there's just so much misinformation at the moment, for, you know, understandably, to be honest. And it's good to kind of just share perspective of what's actually happening and what the future really looks like.
I think before we get into like, because I think majority of the questions are about the vaccine, but before we get into that, as somebody that, as a doctor, like what has the last 12 months been like for you?
Do you know what? It's been really tough. And I know everybody's saying that, but it actually has been. And I feel quite lucky. I'm a GP, so I work in the GP practice. I'm not actually in the hospital, but for hospital colleagues, it's just been like a lot of my friends are working in hospital, and it's just been hard for so many of them. They've been really burnt out. Some of them have left medicine. They've quit being a doctor.
What do you mean they've left to do what?
They've quit.
Yeah, some of them have. It's
too
really,
much?
It's really sad. It's just like already the NHS was under a lot of stress and strain, and people can often feel really devalued within the NHS. And I think this was just like the last thing for them, and it was more about like their mental health and well-being and their family. It was like a personal decisions, but it's not just one person. And then there's people that have lost loved ones, you know, like colleagues of mine, like our neighboring GPs, are no longer. Like, it's just such a hard thing to get your head around, because they're people that you see in meetings and like you see in training and teaching, and you all meet up, and now like they're not here. It's just it's such a strange situation. The general practice that I work in, it's what we call a single-handed general practice. So there's one GP there that runs the whole surgery, and I work there as a sort of long-term locum. So I work there sort of 4 days a week. He's over the age of 70, so he is high risk, and he actually was unwell for a really long time, and it was just me like running the whole practice, which was really tough and really put a lot of strain on everything, really. And it just kind of put things into perspective of like you know, where's the balance between sort of work and like health as well, which is something that you talk about when you're in that situation of, you know, it's just a strange concept. Like, if I get COVID, what's going to happen if I give it to my family and my parents? And it's just something that is still on the back of my mind, and the forefront of my mind. So it's really like, it's so real for everyone, but I felt it was very real very early on for me.
I mean, like, there was no training for this. There would have been like, when you were like in school learning to be a GP, you would have had absolutely no idea that this was coming.
Like nothing at all. And it's hard, because a lot of the information, like, people would assume like you'd get the information first, but like I'd be watching the news, and that's when I knew what was happening when I went to work the next day. Like, it was such a bizarre it is a bizarre situation, and then like you said, there's no training, and I really feel for like people that are medical students who are having to train during these times, and having to, like, they're basically working for free, you know.
Doing this as well, yeah, it's crazy. Sorry, Femi, your what's the other guy's name? Sorry, I don't want to be rude. Ade. What's going on, Ade? Sorry, you're an NHS worker as well, right?
Yeah.
I just asked about asking the doctor, like, what has the last 12 months been like for you?
So I'm in a different part of the system, basically. Yeah. So it's a very fragmented system. Just to explain where I'm at. So you have NHS England, which is like the main arm's length body that manages the whole budget for the NHS, and NHS England Improvement decides, you know, what hospitals are doing, and sets the strategic direction for the NHS. And that's where I work, in the policy unit. And so for me, it's been a different perspective. I'm sure there's similar kind of frustrations of burnt out and challenge and etc. I specifically have been in the PPE procurement unit, so working with the Foreign Office, the Cabinet Office, to get PPE, masks, gloves, aprons from China, working with the military to then distribute it once it comes over, either by sea, by plane, by rail, and then making sure everyone in the country gets as much as possible.
Why did that not go well at the start?
For lots of different reasons. Obviously, just to caveat there, I'm talking in a personal capacity.
We dig that. We get that. We totally understand that.
Capacity after hours. Yeah. And there are many reasons. The biggest one, it was a global competition. Like, every person, every government is trying to buy the right PPE for their country, right? And you've got to remember that PPE generally is used by the construction industry, right? So up until the pandemic, it's normally 6 foot plus white men who are needing this equipment. And so we're also trying to figure out the complexity of trying to get different fits for different face types, you know, ones that are clear for people that are hard of hearing and they can see. So you've got all this complexity, and if you don't have like strong, rigorous governance and like strategic thinking from the top all the way down, it's going to be a bit muddled. And as well as the competitive nature of government, there's also capitalists. So I can tell you of an example of, like, we had a shipment of PP stocks from one supplier, and the venture capitalists are like bidding against France, US, Germany, who's going to pay the most for this stock. And then even within our own country, like, hospitals are bidding against each other because no one wants that Daily Mail headline of they didn't get the PP stocks. So it's just like a whole raft of issues. So not only culturally, how fit and well structured a government or organization is to like deal with stuff, but then the fact that it's all other countries doing it at the same time.
You know what? I feel like, you know what? Just we started this like 5 minutes ago, and I already feel guilty for complaining that I can't rave. You lot are like out on the front line, like really dealing with real stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? Really doing real stuff. And I'm like, oh, I can't go out. I can't rave. Like, you lot are really dealing with it. So, I mean, round of applause to you guys. Like, thank you so much. Honestly, like what you're doing is amazing. We're going to get to talk about the vaccine. But before we even get to that, I think something I've wanted to know, like from people especially Black people, in the healthcare profession, you must see a lot of the conspiracy theories and the WhatsApp messages and the things that are going, like, how do those things make you feel? You're in it, so you know it's real. Like, I've had it, so I know it's real. I think everybody on the screen had been affected by it at some point. So we know it's real, but there's people out there that think it's a conspiracy or it's fake or whatever. Like, when you see those messages and you hear that rhetoric, like, how does that make you feel?
Go first. Oh, no, you go first, Ade.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Adwoa. I don't mind. So, my perspective is I completely get it. So one of the degrees I studied was philosophy of medicine, and there's a history of the science body, which is a kind of representative of the state in most countries where the state has authority over who is a doctor, what is legally, what is ethical. There's a history of people in lower privileges being exploited for that. And so kind of the stuff coming from our community isn't completely random. It's because the lack of engagement, and we see it in the disparity of, you know, more BAME people, whatever that means, dying from COVID than not. So I get it. Obviously, as a clinician and someone from the policy background, it's not always true. But the point is that if there was engagement from, you know, the powers that be into our communities, if there weren't health inequalities, then these things wouldn't have oxygen to breathe. But they have oxygen to breathe because there is a history of inequalities. We do see the disparities. We're not always in the rooms, you know, we're not represented well within the back office NHS England policy system where I'm at. So, you know, when these like when the government or like the comms person is like, oh, you know, who do we talk to? And they've got no idea what the voice is. They've got no idea what, you know, where to meet the Sikh community. And they don't care until there's a judicial review, then, you know, I kind of have a little sympathy, but that's my opinion.
Doc?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with that, to be honest. I call them the Association of African Aunties. Like, they're probably the most powerful organization that that does exist. Things spread so fast, and like, I actually filmed a COVID video for an organization called London in Your Language. And it basically is to kind of help push like a healthy narrative to see a Black GP speaking about COVID. And I actually sent it to my mum and I was like, do your job, like spread this video, you know? But I think like Ade said, like, in this false narrative doesn't come from nowhere. There is history of, I like to talk about Black people, you know. I hate the terminology BAME. I think, Ade, we did that Oxford presentation together, talking about racism being a public health issue. I hate the term BAME because I just don't think it's very helpful. But Black people have been kind of taken advantage of in situations medically in the past. You know, you don't have to go that far back in history. And when we look at COVID, these health inequalities have long existed for a long, long time. Before COVID, it's just COVID plus some of the things that have happened during, you know, in the months before and in the pandemic that have kind of put a spotlight on these things and revealed how much race plays a factor in health, really. What I would say, though, is that I think it's also important that as people that we try and get information from reputable sources, and you have to kind of question people that have really large followings that have done irreparable damage in the last few weeks, try not to be too specific, and you know, that is a problem. You know, things have to be kind of regulated in a way that false information is not being spread on these platforms, because it's dangerous and people are going to die. You know, people are going to suffer as a consequence. So it's important that these discussions like this are happening, and that people know where to seek information from a reputable source as well.
Sorry, can I just quickly back, because you touched, I don't want to go into, I don't want to start going in, I don't want to go in on my man that you're talking about.
We've got them.
No,
Let's give it to them. Let's give it to them.
We're not going to go in on, we ain't going to go in on my man that you kind of alluded to, yeah?
Well, I didn't allude to anybody. I said
to anyone anyway. I will allude to him. You're right.
I don't know who you're talking about.
I don't know who you're talking about either. I don't know. We'll just go left.
You know what's funny about this conversation? What? This is like someone that works for the BBC trying not to say something. Someone that works for the... Damon, should we say the guy's name?
No, let's not say his name.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Let's not say his name.
I think
you're right. I think it's very dangerous. I think it
is dangerous.
It is extremely dangerous. Like, whether like he thinks he's doing a good thing or not, like, fam, you don't have the information. You're not knowledgeable in this. You're just
Ace.
What? Yeah.
Sorry, God. Can we start off at the basics? Yeah, let's get some basic facts. Yeah. So let's start off with masks. Let's start off with face masks. Yeah, because from the start of it, I'm hearing that face masks will protect you. They won't protect you. They protect everybody else. You know, the virus can still be transmitted through the face mask. What facts do you have for us about face masks? I'm talking about I've seen face masks like Adidas face masks, nice face, Louis Vuitton face masks. Wow. Let's talk about the basic blue ones, the blue and the black ones that everyone seems to have.
I mean, I can start. I don't think you can start. I don't mind, but I'll start then. So I think what I would say about the confusion with face masks, I don't blame anybody for the confusion, because the messages have been so confusing. Initially, we were told that you wouldn't necessarily have, the public, wouldn't necessarily have to wear masks, and then you'd have to wear masks inside, and then, the messages were completely mixed. But what I will say about face masks are that as doctors, we use face masks. This is not a new concept for us. We always use face masks in situations to protect ourselves from infection. So firstly, that's not new. With regards to masks, we do know that this is a droplet infection, so it's probably best to speak about what COVID is. So it's basically a droplet spread infection, which affects the respiratory systems, which essentially affects your breathing system. And it causes a lot of inflammation, which is why basically people do very poorly and have very terrible outcomes. Now, the idea of a face mask, of everybody wearing a face mask, is to protect each other from these droplets. So if, for example, you were wearing a face mask and I wasn't, the likelihood of you picking up my droplets is very low, and you giving me your droplets is lower, but I'm still at slight risk, right? Because I'm not wearing a face mask. So if we're both wearing face masks, we're at pretty much low risk of contracting anything. But now I think your question is about what types of face masks are there, and like the quality of face masks.
Well, not really, because Ace has bought his face mask from somewhere, Femi's bought his from somewhere, I bought mine from somewhere, and they all tell us that they're 99% safe. So we can.
But the Adidas and the Nike ones don't. They're just for fashion.
No, but what I'm saying is those. I know. You see, when those ones started to come out, I know that you could buy inlets for them, which made it. But so what I don't want to do is necessarily have a conversation about don't buy Adidas, don't buy Nike, don't buy Louis, because do you know what I mean?
They're better than nothing. Those masks are better than not wearing anything. Even if you're wearing a scarf over your face, it's better than not wearing a scarf over your face. Not to say the scarf is as good as wearing a surgical mask or one with a filter, to go inside. It's a barrier. That's essentially what it is. So I would rather see somebody wearing some sort of face covering than not wearing anything at all. Yeah. And we don't let people do the surgery without wearing. No one's coming into the surgery if they're not wearing a mask. That's just.
I'm coming with a left comment. So Adwoa's absolutely right that a covering of some description is better than nothing. But I think some of that confusion early on, from my personal perspective, is an example of Western elitism, where because people in South Korea, in Southeast Asia, in many parts of Sub-Saharan Africa, where we've been dealing with Ebola and everything else before, have like are saying, look, this is what is best, and this is what we've had, and this is what we've done. But there was confusion because, you know, some of the people in the public institutes of health in America, in the UK, you know, there's generally like an apathy with saying, okay, that person from that place knows better about this than we do, and maybe because of like legal kind of governance reasons, they want to hear it from their kind of scientific committee first. And I think some of this is just kind of elitist posturing of people trying to get right information from the right. And obviously, like we're learning about this coronavirus every day as well. So whether it's a droplet that can pass through, you know, 5 micrometers worth of meshing or not, that's where some of the argument is. But I think some of it is on another kind of sociological perspective of Western elitism, where they're saying, even though you have experience in this matter, we're going to go through our own procedures before we accept your truth.
I heard somebody told me that wearing a mask is bad for you because you are, well, she just rolled out. Like wearing a mask is bad for you because you are, what is it, like you're breathing in stale air, or you're not, I can't remember what
is it you're breathing in your own, is it carbon?
Yeah,
you're recycling
something like, yeah. You guys can talk to that. Is that a true statement?
Putting faces, so add the words.
No, I'm someone, I need to practice black face thing.
This is why it's good to have black people.
What I would say is,
if you're on Igbo people, you're hiding your emotions right now. But
so what I would say to that is, like, if you look at hospital settings where I said that surgeons and doctors have been wearing masks for forever, basically, you know, and when you go and have a surgery, for example, and you're having a hip replacement which takes 6 to 8 hours, I think roughly, that surgeon, and not even just the surgeon's assistant, the other doctors, the anaesthetist, they're all wearing masks for that period of time. Now, logically, surely we would have expected to, if that logic was true, surely we would have some sort of issue with all of these people's respiratory systems in that period of time. And I think it's this narrative has been created by people that just don't like to follow rules and are trying to find reason not to. And it's the idea that people are saying your oxygen level drops for wearing a mask for a period of time. First of all, people are only wearing it for max probably an hour when they're going in and out of a shop, or what, you know, most people don't have to wear masks for long periods of time. It's the medical professionals that have to wear masks 8 hours, 9 hours, even longer. So I think that idea that it's bad for our health, it just doesn't have any basis. There's no scientific evidence or to show that or demonstrate that at all. So, and I think that's just basically stemmed from people that just don't like the idea of someone trying to take away their liberty. You know, that's what it's about. There's just no scientific evidence to support that.
Thank you for that. I'm going to use that when I'm next told that it's not good for me.
Just one more thing on the mask. Well, maybe a couple more things, but one more thing on the mask. Because I remember when we was all told that we you know, we're supposed to wear masks. I remember being told that if you've got the mask on, you touch your face or you touch the mask, then you've contaminated the mask, and therefore you need to. If I'm wearing a mask, yeah, and okay, I'm not even gonna lie. This is what I do. Yeah, I've got masks dotted about the place. I've got masks in coat pockets. I've got masks in my car. I've got masks all over the place because if I'm running out of the house, I'm just running. Even earlier, I bumped into Ace at the local Tesco's, and we've both gone to walk into the Tesco's, and we've stopped, and we're like, "Oh, my mask!" And we're cutting out, like, "Where's the mask?" Do you know what I mean? And I'm pulling out a mask that I've had. You know what? For the purpose of the podcast, I'm gonna say I've had this mask all day. But the reality is, I've probably had this mask since last year, February.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, it's slight exaggeration, but what is the situation with the masks? Are we supposed to wear them for a certain amount of time and then get a new one, or if we have a mask on and we touch it, have we contaminated it now? Are we supposed to just not touch the mask when it's on? What's the situation with the mask?
So we know that. So basically, we know that the virus can live on surfaces for up to 4 hours, depending on the surface that the droplets land on. So technically, if you have a droplet on your face and you touch it, you have contaminated yourself as well. So what I would say is that some, especially the surgical masks, they're supposed to be for one use only. Some of the more fabric ones are supposed to be washed daily, especially if you have a filter, maybe less. But yeah, they're supposed to be changed frequently, again, to minimize the risk of infection. And yeah, of course, touching your face, and even when you remove your mask, you have to be really cautious of how you remove your mask. You know, a lot of these things, practically a lot of people don't really follow, because it's hard, it's a new thing, especially if you haven't been wearing masks before and you don't really have an idea of like that kind of hand hygiene, mask hygiene. It's quite a new concept for many people. So yeah, so to answer your question, you should be changing them daily, or the blue mask, surgical mask, it's a one use and then get rid of.
So I'm gonna throw this we've got questions in the chat on the YouTube. I'm gonna throw this to you, Ade. What are the hospitals in the UK doing differently from other countries? Why do we have such a high daily death rate? The talk on the news about all these new treatments, but they do not seem to be working. So like, why are more people dying? Why have we recorded the highest death rate yesterday again?
Yeah, so I think obviously some of this depends on what you're comparing to, and what kind of metric you're using, because per population size and different areas of the country have different death rates. But generally speaking, the UK as a whole has a number of factors kind of against it, so to speak, kind of average age, average population age, density of urban areas, etc. And then you look at some of the kind of quarantine measures we've been doing on our borders. Some other countries have more stringent kind of measures and have been doing testing before entering, or testing before entry way earlier. So those are some of the main factors. I think there's another thing that I've been thinking about recently, which is that, only history will tell us exactly how and why some of these things were the way they are. Again, some of the main factors like age, average age, like I said, the depopulation, the strain of the virus that has mutated from South Africa and is more virulent, that's causing the second spike right now. Some of those things we can quite confidently say that's probably measures that are disproportionately effective in the UK compared with other countries in the world and other hospitals in the world. But only the fullness of history and time will tell us in a lot more clarity and vividness exactly why these things have been happening. I mean, Dr. Adwoa might have more, but those are some of the things in my perspective.
I feel like people underestimate the fact that this is a novel virus as well. Like, no one knows. People are learning everyone's learning as we go along.
Yeah, and I'm probably going to butcher the logical term, but there's something like survivorship bias, but basically humans look for patterns of recognition to then explain our world, and that gives us confidence that we are in control of our destiny, we are masters of our destiny, like we know what's going on. But in reality, it's only after some time afterwards that you can then say, because I remember in the beginning, people looking at Sweden and saying herd immunity, like they've got it right, this and that. But now another picture has emerged where maybe they're not, getting it as right as people first thought, and then people are looking for other facts to explain that narrative. So I always hesitate to definitively say, epidemiological patterns are this way because of X, Y, and Z. When I think only over time will we really get a clear picture and be able to say factually this is X, this is why this happened. One other example, the disproportionate number of deaths in Black people. Lots of WhatsApp theories about 5G and vitamin D, and again, some of those may be true, but only in the fullness of time, when you do a lot more research, can you conclusively and definitively say it's because maybe they're in more, lower socioeconomic jobs that are on the front line, etc., or whatever it may be.
So I remember in the summer, there's loads of questions now. It's getting a bit silly. But
Femi. You know what? Just before you say that, I think we should I think we should actually just try and get through all of these questions because they've come on to ask these questions.
No. And I've encouraged the questions to be asked, but I just wanted to say this. I remember in the summer there was the open letter to the government about that very issue. What's been the outcome of that?
Go on.
Well, you go and then I'll go because I'm always quite problematic with these answers. So you go first. Yeah,
you have a turn, Adwoa. Go on, tell us.
Yeah, so basically with the report, I mean, the report to me, okay, so the report basically identified all the reasons why Black people, Asian people, minority ethnic groups were more predisposed. And I think one of those things, you know, like Ade said, there had been theories of vitamin D deficiency, there had been theories of socioeconomic status, also, you know, issues of safety and lack of PPE, and also fear of being able to speak out and say there isn't enough PPE, for example, and you know, there were stories that nurses were being specifically, Black nurses were being specifically targeted, agency nurses, to work on COVID wards with perhaps questionable masks, and you know, it was basically the conclusion was that, you know, that also racism is a large factor. So for me, like, we've had this review, we've had another look at the review because it was felt that there weren't enough recommendations given in that report, and now we're here, and you know, we have risk assessments now, which I guess has come as a result of that report that was published. But for me, I still think there's so much more to be done. Like, we know that Black people are more likely to be affected, yet for me, I am struggling to see why they're not being prioritized for the vaccination, and that's something I really struggle with. Like, what was the point of the report? And I know that you probably can't say these things, Ade, but I can. So what was the point of finding out all that information, knowing that we are much more likely to have poorer outcomes, yet we're still asking to be prioritized for the vaccine? I mean, I've had my vaccine, but for people like my parents, my aunties, who are at much higher risk, they're not being prioritized. And for me, that's an issue.
That is problematic. Quick one. You've had your vaccine, and Jig Real on our YouTube has heard COVID vaccinations don't protect you 100%. Is that true or false? I mean, no vaccine protects 100%, but yeah, but go on.
So with regards to the vaccine, there's 2 doses. So there's the Pfizer vaccine and the Oxford
AstraZeneca.
Yeah, exactly. So the vaccine, both vaccines are supposed to give 90% protection from coronavirus, but you do need to have both doses to have that immunity, and it takes about 2 or 3 weeks after that second dose to have that immunity. So if you're looking, am I completely protected after my first vaccine? No, I'm definitely not. But by the time I've had my second dose, I should have 90% protection.
What was your side effects? Did you feel like your throat was getting bigger? Did your eyes start bulging?
I'll be honest. I'll be really honest with you. Like, I had obviously read all of these things about some of my things that I had on Facebook groups. You know, I read them and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to have this vaccine. And I was really in anticipation. That I was ready. I had paracetamol ready. I had I was ready. I was prepared for these side effects, and nothing. Not, I sound disappointed, but nothing. I had a little bit of a dead arm, but after a workout, I'm in a lot more pain. So I was fine. I'm fine. No chips. I'm good.
Ade, have you had the vaccine?
No, not yet. And I'm not a key worker critical like Adwoa. I'm in the back office like a scaredy cat.
You're not front of house.
No.
Is a national lockdown really necessary considering the survival rate is high and as close to the flu? Ade, that's to you.
Yes, is my reluctant short answer. I know it's tough, but the thing you've got to think about, I mean, you've got to look at the data that we have now, and all the data that public health officials are looking at shows that it's going in a direction that's not great. So you need some kind of intervention, whether that's a national lockdown or circuit breaker or something that just slows it down. And that's probably going to what Damon was alluding to with the masks and the proper etiquette that people should be doing with washing their hands and etc. And the thing I was thinking about when he was speaking was because I'm not doing exactly everything you're supposed to do. I've got similar, like, you know, masks in strategic places in the car, etc. That's because, you know, after a while there's some kind of you know, burnout, anxiety, lethargy from kind of being on point 24/7, and I think that's just happened on a kind of massive scale to some degree, where people have laxed a little bit. Certain demographics, whether younger or students or whatever, have laxed in major ways, and they're more virulent and etc. And so yes, I think we do need a national intervention just to also stop the you know, one of the messages the government uses to protect the NHS, and as Ade was saying at the very beginning, that, you know, people are getting really burnt out, PTSD and all sorts on the front line. So we've got to try and reduce the capacity, you know, I mean, manage capacity in some way.
In terms of that, so like, you think a national lockdown is good and all of that stuff, or you think it's like, you know, our best option at the moment, right? So how long for, man? I'm tired. We're tired, man. We want to go out. We want to party. We're done. We're done out here. Let's be real. Like, you know, I can't make a film this year and put it out in the cinema. Ace can't play in a rave. Damon's not really giving out trims at the moment, unless like you live in his house. Like, and none of us live in his house. So ultimately, like, we can't flex. We can't function. How long for?
Well, hold on. Sorry, Femi. Because I've been around so many people that have asked that question, and obviously nobody really knows the right answer. But what I've been hearing and what a lot of people have been hearing is, are we waiting for a certain amount of people to be vaccinated before we can come out of our house? Because that's what I'm hearing. That it's just like, once a certain amount of people in the population get vaccinated, then it will be safe for us to come out and get back to normal. Because what we're talking a year, right? Close to a year, right?
So I don't know the government's exit strategy, and Adwoa as a clinician might have more insight onto this, but you've got to remember that half of this, I won't even say half, I would say 80% of this isn't, in my opinion, isn't science. It's policy, it's government, it's strategy. And that's kind of, you know, so for example, take Israel, they've got the best vaccination rates in the world. Netanyahu, the president, is up for election in 4 months. The relationship is like Israelis have with their government is quite tight. You know, they're a country surrounded by enemies all around. Sweden have a different kind of relationship with their government, where they're a little bit trusting. You know, we as people in Britain have a different relationship with our government, and they've got a majority for the next 4 years in government, so they're not up. And you know, Labour is given some opposition. So there's lots of other factors that then decide how a government wants to manage lockdown. China was able to lock people down because they're a, you know, one-party state. They can say stay in your room for the next 10 years, and people will listen. They've got no other choice. So there's kind of different relationships that then dictate what lockdown means. So I think we can hypothesize about what exit strategy looks like, but Cabinet Office, people in central government are probably looking at polling as well as our numbers and what, you know, people's perceptions and what their friends, the Telegraph and Daily Mail, are saying before they make decisions. And so I think there's a lot of that that's going to come into play. And then also like the unions, right? Teachers unions, construction firm lobbyists, what people are saying to them.
Steve, I'm gonna skip to the next question. I was gonna talk about actually how Israel is too technical. Forget it. I was gonna talk about the fact that they've got, like, you know, sort of different bodies administering in terms of like sort of delivering health in Israel. It's almost like this competitive thing, and there's like 4 different organizations that do the job of NHS England. But anyway, it's too technical. It's no point. Let's go to I heard you're supposed to take 2 injections. What's the time span and how does it all work, Adwoa? What do you think?
Yeah, so like I said, in order to get that full over 90% immunity, the doses have to be given 2 doses, and they need to be 3 weeks apart to 12 weeks apart, depending on the vaccine. So there's more evidence. At first it was 3 weeks, but there's more evidence to suggest that you can still have immunity after having it if there's a 3-month break. So 3 to 12 weeks in between both doses. So
when are you scheduled to have your second dose? Because like the government were talking about the fact that they were going to delay the second dose.
Yeah, so that's I haven't got a date. I haven't got a date for it yet. So,
and I wouldn't be surprised if that's going to if the government are going to delay it, because again there's a strategic thing. I think, and it's probably like a health economics number thing. Like, you know, they model the risk that maybe it's better to get more people 70% safe or 60% safe than, so 100 people 60% safe than 50 people 100% safe, if that makes sense.
That's exactly what's happening. So I was quite late in terms of like frontline workers to get the vaccine. So a lot of the people that had their first vaccine were due around the time that I was supposed to have my first. So theirs have been delayed. So some people's have been delayed and they haven't had their second dose. So it's been stretched to 12 weeks, 3 months time. They need to have it with it.
So the next question, I could probably guess your answer. I'll put this to Ade. 3 different vaccines. Why isn't the scientifically best one just the one, and everyone else? Why don't we focus on just the Pfizer one, because that's like probably, you know, the strongest one, or why not the AstraZeneca? Why not the Moderna one? Why have we got 3 different vaccines approved?
So holistic look, like just kind of from a bird's eye view speaking, you know, loads of money has been given to all these pharmaceutical companies and universities to work with pharmaceutical companies to try and get us back to normal, right? So we've, in an unprecedented era, had billions of research money pumped into this, and so just every pharma company has been focusing on this, and we've just come up with, you know, Moderna, Pfizer, BioNTech, and AstraZeneca, Oxford, with 3 different very good candidates, because that's all they've been doing. There's nothing else to do. We have different options, and some are better than others, and they have different efficacies and efficiencies and all the rest of it, because they have different technologies. So there's the traditional vaccines, which is not getting too technical, and there's a new technology which is like triggering your body to make an immune response, mRNA. And some of these technologies require to be stored at really low temperatures, -70. And so, you know, if you want to get it from here to Birmingham, and, you know, from Sweden to London, you've got to, you know, it's got to be in a freezer all the time type thing. And so those are expensive, and we don't always have, you know, we don't have that infrastructure set up. Another type of vaccine, I think it's the Oxford one, can be stored at refrigerator temperature, and that's easier to transport. And then each, like, they cost different. So the Oxford one costs £3 a jab. The Pfizer one, like, I think 15 or 20 pounds. But anyway, like, there's different costing, so that's why it's just different, and there's lots of different calculations to make as to whether a pharmacy has that capacity to store it at -70 or not. But most people have fridges, so that's why we're trying to go for this type. And then just the other factor, you know, way at the early stages when we're getting preliminary data, Treasury and you know, the kind of scientific committees had to make judgments and say, all right, look, we're going to buy 50 million doses at this much, and they had to hedge their bet, so they went across all 3, and that's why we've got different options, or 2 rather.
All right, so what is this mRNA thing? Like, why is it so different, and in terms of what it does to your body, in terms of how it works in your body, to a traditional vaccine in the AstraZeneca case? Do you know?
Yeah, I can have a go, and then Adwoa can clean up my mistakes, which I'm sure I'm going to make. But so, you know, you've got DNA, which codes whether you have blue eyes, you know, who you are, how tall you are, etc., etc. mRNA is a single strand of that, and the way the vaccine works, which is new technology, is that it's kind of got this protein that goes into your body, and it tells your antibodies, your immune system, look, this is what a coronavirus particle looks like. Figure out how to make an immune response to it, so that you can fight it if and when the real thing comes, and you're immune to it. and that's a massive new technology. And you can think about the future of this kind of thing, where you can trigger your body to recognize things and, you know, make responses to it, etc. And then that mRNA thing dies in your body after a day or two, which is very different to typical vaccines, which I think are very small particles of the live, or, you know, half live vaccine. I'm butchering the
no, that's exactly it. So yeah, that's exactly it. So more traditional vaccines, you typically have like a very weakened type of the actual virus, whereas this does not contain any COVID virus, which is why it's actually quite new and quite exciting as well. So when people say you're actually going to get the virus, no, you don't actually have any coronavirus injected into you. It's just it's basically just the protein that says, hey, get ready, this is what it looks like, be ready for when it comes. So that's how it works.
But people are really scared about that, you know, like people are scared, people always scared of new technology. And like, I suppose like people are scared of this, you know, we know how traditional vaccines work, and we've been having that all our lives. Everyone's got the BCG mark on their arm.
Yeah.
And you know, we're used to that. And then this new technology is just a bit too hard for everyone to get their head around.
Can I say something? So,
yeah.
So something that has come to my mind, yeah, with this new vaccine, yeah, is, and Femi touched on it. You see this BCG thing? It's an injection, right? Why does everyone have a scar? I've had many injections in my life, as have all of you, and we don't get scars. So that's a worry. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, there's this thing of, well, what are you really? You're laughing, big man. I've got the scar here.
What you said? It's the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast.
Yeah, the weed man back in the day was telling us about this. The weed man. You know, look, I mean, I don't need an explanation why I've still got a scar. Maybe after the podcast, but you know, in regards to the vaccines and how many different vaccines there are, you two professionals that are here now, what one would you advise? Would you advise taking one over another?
No, I would never advise to take one over the other. I don't think I could really. I'll be actually honest with you, and I won't just give you my doctor answer. Genuinely, like, when I went for my vaccine, I didn't know which one I was going to be having. It didn't really matter to me, to be honest, at all, because all I cared about was having some kind of immunity, given how high risk my job is, and you know, that was the priority. And also looking at both of those vaccines, they're actually quite similar. The reason why the like Ade was saying, the Oxford vaccine, the good thing about it is that is well, for me, in terms of like a GP, it's the storage. With the Pfizer vaccine, it has to be stored in -70 degrees. So I had to go to a special center where they have the fridges to be able to store these vaccines, because we can't store those vaccines in our surgery. So if we can get hold of the Oxford vaccine, we can actually start administering it from our own surgeries, because it can go in our fridge, so that we can give it to everybody. So like the same way we give flu jabs, basically. So in terms of that's for convenience, I think Oxford would be great, because we can really push out the vaccines for a lot of people.
I'm going to skip to the next question, because they're coming in thick and fast, and people are actually having arguments in the chat box.
They are, yeah.
What are you arguing about?
Is it because of what we're saying?
Yeah, no one's got time. No one's got time. And we need to get through these questions.
It's popping off in the chat. It's
quite good. It's going off, but I've got no time to moderate them right now. Going through the questions. Dr. Adwoa, how was the vaccine rollout affected? How has the vaccine rollout affected your day-to-day work at the practice? Well, you kind of suggested that it hasn't. As you're a single GP practice, how can your local LMC, CCG group practices, I don't know what the next bit is. But yeah, has it affected you?
What was that?
So basically, as the rollout of the vaccine affected your work at all?
Well, yeah, it definitely has. I mean, every day people call, and this is the actual interesting thing that people don't really know. every day I get phone calls of patients saying, when am I getting my vaccine? Am I on the list? Please don't forget about me. People are desperate for this vaccine. And
I want it.
Yeah, is that the same?
No, I'm saying I want it.
Yeah, like people want this vaccine. People are asking me and like, don't forget about me and my husband. You know, I hope you're well, doctor. Don't forget about me. Like, people are desperate for this vaccine. And that does affect my work, because all I'm thinking about is I really want these people to be well, so they can leave their house. Like, there's people that haven't left their house for 10 months. And when I say haven't left their house, they haven't stepped out of their house for 10 months. You know, and those are the people that I think about. Now, with regards to the actual vaccinating, it does affect us, because the way it works, like I said to you, that there's a central fridge in the area, and we all take turns to go and give out vaccinations as well. So like, our nurse will go for a day and do vaccinations, which means she's not at the surgery. So we are really stretched and quite overwhelmed at the moment, but it's important that it just needs to be done.
This one is kind of like a broad question, but maybe you can answer it for us. What is the treatment in hospital if you get COVID-19? What happens? I get COVID, I call them. Oh, I get there. Oh, you've got COVID. Yeah. What happens?
That's a really good question.
It is a good question.
So it's a really good question. So with COVID, it's a disease that affects the lungs, and you have it's the inflammation that causes all the problems with breathing. So your lungs just are so inflamed, they can't do their job. So you just can't breathe. Like, I don't know if anyone's had COVID here, but you genuinely feel like you're suffocating, and it's a very horrible feeling from how it's described. So your oxygen levels are dropping. So in terms of what happens when you go to hospital, they assess the severity. So they assess like how infected are you, basically. How infected are you? Often people have a chest X-ray. So when the viral infection gets bad, you can have a secondary bacterial infection. So people can go on to have pneumonia. So sometimes they're treated with antibiotics as well to try and alleviate the secondary bacterial infection, oxygen therapy. And sometimes when all of those things fail, you may have to go to intensive care, which is where they can actually administer more specific concentrated oxygen, as well as support all your other organs. Because when you're having so much infection in your body, all your organs basically just start to fail, like they would with any other kind of infection. So you need kind of organ support. So then you have to go to ITU.
And just one or two things to add, because it happened to both my mother and my mother-in-law. So yes, you have very difficulty breathing, and this doesn't just happen with COVID, for example. It happens with all healthcare diseases. You know, like they evaluate the severity and whether or not you can be treated on ward or at home. And both my mother and mother-in-law were advised, because they were of an age and a disease type, that they could stay at home. And stay that way, but if you can't, then you have to go on oxygen cylinders. If that's not enough, then you go on a ventilator, which is basically breathing for you. And you know, hospitals' oxygen piping systems weren't built to have so many wards with oxygen cylinders. Maybe there was just one intensive care ward or two in a typical district general hospital that would have, 12 beds with oxygen cylinders or oxygen ventilators. But there just isn't enough. Yes, there are nightingales, but there's so much more in terms of whether there's enough staffing and stuff, that sometimes there is just that decision that has to be made as to whether there is a bed, or whether you are of an age and a disposition that might be more able to survive at home with just rest.
Yeah, and I think it's important to also mention as well, like, sometimes I don't think people really understand what happens when you survive COVID and like you leave ITU. People are leaving on oxygen. People are having long-term oxygen. They're on oxygen in their own homes. They are going to have long-term effects of having COVID. So although you may leave hospital, and probably shouldn't say all this stuff, but when you leave ITU, it's not over for a lot of people. It's months and months of recovery, and you may not make a full recovery either.
Can I quickly, I got a question about children. For a long time, they were allowed to go to school, even when we were lockdown. The doctor's smiling.
I'm trying.
Are children at risk? Are they what is the situation with children? Are they in danger? Like, how do you feel about children being able to be at school? Obviously, they're not at the moment, but there was a long time when they were still going to school.
Super spreaders.
Yeah.
I think that's just it. That's just it. So the numbers of children having very bad outcomes, having to go to hospital, very, very low numbers. But the number of children that are infected and spreading, they're super spreaders. Okay. Very, very high. So the idea of children not going to school wasn't because they were more at risk. It was just to stop them spreading it to their teachers, who would go on to spread it to their families, or children spreading it to other children, spreading to their families. You know, you've got whole classes that I've got a lot of teachers that are my patients. They have been, like when they were at school, they were just isolating every week, because they'd go into school, another kid would have it, they'd have to isolate again, the whole class would have to isolate, then they'd finish, then they go back, and then their child has it, then they isolate again, go. It's just a cycle. So they were just mass spreaders, essentially. I don't know if Ade, you wanted to add anything to that.
Well, no, just to say, I had to take a personal calculated risk, because at the height of the pandemic, in the position I was at with NHS England, I had to go into the office because we were working very closely with the military, and you know, the military don't do emails like that, so you had to be in the building with them, working. And my wife, we have a 2-year-old. It just wasn't tenable to have a, you know, a kind of, like that. They can't be homeschooled at that age. So a calculated risk, because all that I'd researched and read was, I understood about that, but I also understood that, you know, the school was taking, or nursery rather, was taking the right precautions. And going back to what Femi was saying about everyone, you know, needing to have a livelihood, I really feel for, you know, people who have to kind of homeschool and do all of that. And I think, there is a balance to strike, and maybe we can go more in the other direction of managing the risks and trying to get everyone back to some kind of normalcy as possible.
This one's one that's definitely been doing the rounds on the conspiracy theory chats, yeah? Why are so many causes of deaths being recorded as COVID, even when other illnesses had killed people?
I don't know what's that.
So the question is, right? So like, I go into hospital, I might have had COVID, but obviously that leads to that, or it triggers a long-term illness that I had. And like when I die, instead of like it being recorded as heart failure, I don't know, I'm making this up.
Yeah.
Right. It's recorded as a COVID death. And so there's been a lot of like, I've been seeing a lot of like, I don't know. To be honest, I don't really care about conspiracy theories. And because I'm like, you know what, it's a conspiracy theory for a reason. Until it affects my life, I do not give a damn. And otherwise, I'm going to be carrying random bits of information, useless information, around in my head and stressing myself out all day. But this is one that I've been seeing where like, it's like almost like the government are trying to exaggerate the amount of deaths related to COVID, because they're trying to scare people into believing that this thing's crazier than it is.
Well, I think to start off kind of working backwards to the answer, it's more than likely that the numbers are underrepresented, more than likely. I think there's a lot of people, I think the numbers, if we even think about it, they're probably lower than what they actually are.
Really?
There are a lot of people that probably do have COVID that probably wouldn't even go and have a test. So even working backwards, I expect the numbers that we see today are definitely going to be, well, maybe even slightly higher in reality. Now, with regards to the death certificates, you know, it's difficult to answer because I don't really work in hospital, so I don't do any death certificates, you know, often. So what I would say is that on the death certificate, there's different lines. I don't know if anyone has seen a death certificate, but there's different lines where you can basically put cause of death, and others, like other things that may have contributed to the death, and then other medical illnesses. So if you go into hospital with COVID, because it's such a novel virus, it's very hard to possibly know whether that contributed to the illness or not. And it's probably likely affected what the existing condition that it was anyway. It's hard to explain without having like a death certificate to show you. But as I said, on the death certificate, there's multiple lines. So you have like the main cause of death, something that's contributed to that. And then you have like number 2, which is like other. So like diabetes, high blood pressure, you can put on there as well. So it's not like there's just one thing on there. There's multiple things in many cases as well.
And maybe I may just quickly speak on it that like conspiracy theories thrive in this kind of ambiguity and uncertainty, and the ambiguity is what Adwoa was saying, which is what is a death certificate, what is on a coroner's report. Not many people know that, and I'm not going to say that I know in any depth. I know some of what she was saying, that there's 4 probable causes, and you put the one that you think is most probable to have caused the death. But like a typical person wouldn't know that. A typical person wouldn't know who is actually authorized to sign a coroner's report. Is it a doctor? Is it a legal person? All this rest of it. And so in that uncertainty and does it really mean this? And then also the kind of Western enlightenment that we are smarter than we are led to believe, and the media is controlling us. Conspiracy theories can rise like that, and then people that want to kind of feel like they're in control of destiny and that they know more than that is going on, find solace in that, right? And then that's when they can thrive, and you will just find more evidence to support, or facts to support your argument. Not say that that's right, but that's just kind of typical human behavior.
Okay, but in kind of elaborating on this question, so something that I've noticed, and what other people have noticed as well, is what gets reported is, let's say, 7,000 deaths today with COVID, as opposed to 7,000 deaths because of COVID. Now, this is where I sit with this. I think humans, we're kind of programmed to hear certain words in a sentence. So we hear death and we hear COVID, and we automatically put those together. Yeah. And we're like, right, 7,000 people died because of COVID. I think what people are trying to get at and trying to break down is, we are hearing that there's 7,000 people that died with COVID. That doesn't necessarily mean that 7,000 people died because of COVID. So I think what people are trying to work out is where are people who are feeding this, which we can say is the media, are going with this. Because I am one of these people that are of the belief that there are people that are trying to create panic. They're trying to create, and I honestly feel that people that are in a state of panic are easier to control than anybody else, than free thinking people or whatever, and I've heard this on news and read certain things, and I stop and I think, what does that actually mean? Because there's probably the same amount of people, I'm just throwing out random numbers, there's the same amount of people that have died through smoke, through
Damon, the point is, not that many people die in a day, This is the thing. People think,
and I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that.
Or people die every day anyway, and blah blah blah. But not that people just don't die of the same cause like this.
Femi, I hear you, but then I understand that right now we're in a COVID world. Yeah, we're in a COVID world. But you see, let's take the number 7,000. We say 7,000 people died with COVID. That's not necessarily the cause of their deaths. Do you know what I mean? And it's not practical to be told, okay, 7,000 people also died with chlamydia. 7,000 people also died with a cold. 7,000 people also died with a headache. I understand that that's not, feasible to be. Do you understand what I'm saying? But I understand where a lot of people are coming from in regards to what the media are putting out and trying to make us go down that road. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying.
Sorry.
I would argue, just before you come in, I would also argue that in all those, so we're just going with the number 7,000, in all of those deaths, because it's just typically not possible to do a full coroner biopsy report to say definitively even though this person tested positive with COVID, they died because of atrial fibrillation, they died because of a sugar spike, or something else. So in that kind of, that's just the way health systems are, and that's the way reporting is and statistics are. With COVID is the kind of headline figure that yes, it can cause panic and it can cause more susceptible control of large populations, etc. But to suggest that there is a mastermind or a conspiratorial kind of like, let us say this to then control that, no, like government isn't that smart is my personal. But
okay. Now with your professional opinion, is there a way to find out how many people have died because of COVID, because of nothing else but COVID? Are those numbers of? No, and I'm not saying from YouTube, but are those numbers of?
They've just explained to you that it's almost like on a scale. You get this sheet of paper that it's like COVID. It's a novel virus, so they don't even know whether that's what killed you or not, because it's novel, meaning no one really fully understands this virus.
It's not as though look, every death is scrutinized. Every single death is scrutinized. You have to have more than one person that completes the death certificate. So it's not like somebody just adds COVID and you didn't have a test. No, like if you've had a positive COVID test, you more than likely came in there with some sort of respiratory symptom, but we can't for certain say that your heart attack wasn't related to the fact that you had COVID. We can't say for certain that your stroke wasn't related to the fact that you had COVID. So the safest thing to do is to write stroke, probably secondary to I don't know, a clot, probably secondary to the fact that you had COVID. That doesn't seem irrational. It's not as though people are just writing COVID. It's methodical. It's actually trying to work out, scrutinizing this person's death. What is it that you think happens? And what actually physically happens is the person dies. You have to complete the death certificate. You have to discuss, if there's any uncertainty, you have to discuss it with a coroner. You have to actually discuss it and say, look, this is the situation. You actually have to go through what's happened. And they think, okay, actually, yeah, that sounds reasonable. So it's not like some person is just writing COVID on the death certificate. Every death is scrutinized, and it's a methodical process. And it's also a legal document as well. So you can't just put anything on there. It needs to make sense. And also the notes are there so you can verify what's happened, and you have a history so you know what's happened in the days, weeks before they've even come to hospital, to be able to have a clear picture of what's happened.
Can I just try a quick mental exercise to show you how conspiracy theories might come about? So you're aware that there may be a public inquiry, a judicial review about the government's handling of the situation. You may also be aware that government, like there's liability and indemnity in terms of, whether they are liable for cause of death and et cetera. So there could be an argument and a theory that suggests actually government is underreporting coronavirus deaths because they don't want to be held liable for that, for many more deaths. So actually there could be more coronavirus deaths, but government has told coroners and death certificate people across the country to underreport coronavirus, so they're not held liable. I've just made that up, but that is something that someone could potentially say, yeah, join the dots and think that's a thing. And if that came to you in a WhatsApp message without my filtering and explanation right now, some people could believe that, and that could gain wings. And
the thing is, you see with what you said here, I don't actually disagree with that, because I think a point that you made earlier in regards to people's relationships with their government. One of my best friends lives in Australia, and he asked me a little while ago, am I going to take the vaccine? I initially said no. He said, why? I said, because I don't trust the government. So as a free thinking adult, I've witnessed so many things that make me distrust this government. And I said to him, your relationship with your government in Australia could be totally different. Do you know what I mean? And I think that is a big issue with people in this country. There's been blatant lies by members of the government, and they just, just tell us, well,
I mean,
this is what we're telling you.
The health secretary was pretending to cry on TV.
Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? So, when I'm hearing things like, I believe in wordplay. I believe in mind manipulation. I believe in all that stuff. And I'm never going to look at our government or any other government around the world and say they're not that intelligent to do something like that. But back to your point, because I've also thought to myself, what happens if this is the other way round? What happens if this is the government actually trying to protect us from something bigger than, and I get it. People, I suppose people like to focus on the bad more than the good. And, even the whole term conspiracy theory, I've had conversations with Femi and Ace many a times, and it's just like, a conspiracy theorist, isn't that just somebody who just says things against the government that isn't actually proven yet? Do you know what I mean? But
let's move on, because we could get stuck here.
We could go,
We could get stuck here. There's like, I want to ask 3 more questions, and then
we'll wrap up.
We'll call it quits.
Yeah.
The 3 more questions. One of the questions is, given the effort taken to come up with the COVID vaccine, could the same global effort work to come up with other vaccines for serious illnesses such as cancer, HIV, and Ebola? I could try to answer that and say not really, because these are not economic. These do not have the economic effect that this is COVID has had on governments all around the world. But you guys can add to it though.
Don't say anything that's going to get in trouble.
No, I'm not gonna. I wouldn't do that. All I would say is, okay. What I would say is that we have seen how, when it's in the interest of people, things come together very, very quickly. There's a global effort. But you mentioned, I think did someone say Ebola, or did someone say HIV?
Both.
HIV,
both. Let me say both.
Well, I mean, typically though. Okay, let me not.
No, in essence, let's just be real. In essence, these diseases affect predominantly sub-Saharan African people, right? And those states are very poor, and it's not in the West's interest to come up with solutions for those problems. They don't make that much money from it, because who's they're gonna sell it to? They're gonna and so ultimately, like, this is more of a profitable business. And also,
don't say nothing that's gonna get you in trouble.
No, but I'm saying it.
This is Femi or you're nearing.
Femi works for Femi. Femi works for Femi. I'm saying that.
No, I think it's that's a very I understand what you've said, Femi. That's a lot of people think like that. A lot of people have said that to me. But let's just hope that we can redirect those efforts. In the future, we can learn from this and redirect that to things like HIV. Where it seems to have kind of fallen away. But people are working really hard in those areas as well. So let's not take away from that. People are working hard.
I just think it all boils down to investment. And as you said earlier, like, billions have been invested into this. And billions were found overnight. Governments were borrowing money it was because there was an urgent need that was affecting the population of these Western countries. And so, if you look at all the countries that have been affected by COVID, apart from, say, South Africa, it's not really the African countries, have been affected, but not as much in terms of death, in terms of fatalities. And so ultimately, for me, I just feel it's not like Ebola, HIV, they're not Western problems.
You know what, actually, I can actually say this. A good example of what I think you're kind of trying to say is that, for example, sickle cell in the UK, right? So sickle cell is the most common genetic inherited disease in this country. Now, a lot of people don't know that, right? So the Sickle Cell Society is a charity, it's a fund. They were the people that actually put systems in place to ensure that when people were having crisis, they were actually getting the support and the medical care that they deserved. Now, if you were to compare that with something like cystic fibrosis, which is a genetic disorder in this country, which doesn't affect as many people, but predominantly affects white people, they received something like 11 million pounds of funding to look into research. Now, why is that? That's the question.
Sorry, so I'm happy to go there and call it about race, because it is about race. So one of the other things I should have mentioned as well is I'm chair of, so we have a BAME staff network in NHS England, and I'm chair of that BAME staff network. And I'm absolutely happy to, in that capacity, call it out. Yeah. It's a race thing. So as Adwoa said, sickle cell was the first genetic disorder discovered, and it had a head start of cystic fibrosis, and the funding disparity is huge. Sickle cell affects mostly Black people. It's absolutely about race, and I'll share one personal story. So one of my first jobs was a management consultant, and I worked with pharmaceutical companies. I remember we did this kind of pipeline analysis, and I was in the C-level of this big top 5 pharma company, all white men around the board table. And you think about this Bruce Wayne big like boardroom and overlooking the Sky City, and we're looking at all these disease areas. And we had like one that affected, Japanese women, and we had one that looked at, and they're looking at, investing into a pipeline drug, and they picked the one that affected prostate, like men with prostate, which was, I thought, and I said that's your demographic, and it wasn't the most profitable like disease area they can invest in, but you think about people in these rooms of where there's funding go for this research, or where there's like let's target this disease area. And who makes those decisions then affects where the money goes. And if the relationship is there, it's no surprise that Oxford was in a strong position to benefit from funding research. So yeah, I'd go there and say it's absolutely about race.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to get that on the record. Quickly, if you've had COVID, do you have immunity after having it?
Well, so we don't know enough, and probably not. So there are people that have had COVID who had positive tests, and they have had an antibody test to see whether they have the recognition system to recognize and fight the virus should it come about again, and they didn't have any antibodies. So having COVID does not necessarily mean that you are immune to having COVID again. And I've had patients that have had it twice in different periods of, over several months, with months in between, I should say.
Now, I think we should end on this. How do we convince Black people, especially young Black people, to get the vaccine when it's offered to them? Good. Why should they?
Okay, well, I can start with that. I think, first of all, conversations like this are really, really important, because there's people that are having good conversations, I think, in the chat about, bringing up this topic to have discussions, to kind of allay some of the anxieties and answer questions that people have. How can we encourage people? I think seeing people like myself, when I watch the news and I see the people that are having vaccines, I don't see people that look like me having the vaccination. So I think it's kind of building into that kind of narrative. I think you need to have more people that look like me having the vaccine and speaking about the vaccine, which is why I said to you, I made a video about COVID and the vaccine, and I made a couple of others to put out as well with an organization. And also I try and speak about it on my Instagram page at The Clinic Diaries, all one word, about lots of these issues, because it's important. And the way I see it is that I'm not necessarily taking the vaccine to protect myself because I'm, relatively fit, relatively well, but it's I've seen the devastating effects it has on people who are even younger than my parents, and people that have lost their loved ones. Like, why would I put them at risk, and why would they want to put themselves at risk? They were very, especially my mum, she wasn't sure. But now she's like, I want my vaccine, I want my vaccine, I want my vaccine. My dad's like, I can't wait. Like, people are desperate to have this vaccine, because people just want normality, and people want to want to stay well and be able to kind of carry on their life, you know, as best they can, and not be fearful and scared to go out. So that's kind of my contribution to that answer.
Thank you. Ade?
Well, a lot of what Adwoa said, but I hesitate to kind of not think about this as an opportunity to shine a spotlight on kind of engagement from the powers that be, the state or Department of Health and Social Care or NHS, and say, because I've had it in the past where, you know, the communications team will come to me on October, or leading up to October, Black History Month, you know, who should we be talking to, or this and that. And then, you know, health inequalities have always existed before, and that's because of a lack of engagement, because we're not meeting people where they are, and also because people like us aren't in those places of where decision making is happening to inform. Look, actually, if you want to put out a document like this, you might want to translate it into 5 different languages. You might want to do it, you know, on the Sikh channel. You might want to go to Redeemed Christian Church of God, who've got a network of churches where, you know, this community is, etc., etc. So whilst absolutely kind of for ourselves, for Black people, I would say, look, you've got to protect yourselves and protect those around you, because you might be able to, as a young fit person, survive from it, but your aunties, your uncles, your parents might not. But then also, the problem isn't only with us. I think there's something to say, and use this as an opportunity to kind of, say to the powers that be that, look, this isn't a one-off thing, that, you know, we should have continuous engagement, and we should be represented, so that we don't have stuff like this happening disproportionately to Black people.
Oh, this has been amazing, man. Honestly, thank you guys so much for joining us, and what an amazing conversation this has been. Ade, you said that you had a blog. Was it a blog or a website?
Me? No personal blog. I'm a back office civil service guy. So I'm here in a personal capacity.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Adwoa, you've got the Clinic Diaries.
Yeah, it's on an Instagram page. So it's basically just an Instagram page where I talk like this, but on Instagram and in a more kind of medical capacity. So I talk about lots of medical problems that predominantly affect the Black community, because at the uptake.
Can I show you this rash? Am I joking? It was a joke.
Yeah, so if you are sort of interested, or you want to like have more conversation, do give me a follow and send any messages if you want to kind of continue the conversation. I don't really do Clubhouse anymore.
So what?
No blame ya.
Did they run you off Clubhouse?
No, but I saw what they did to other people, and I was like,
because I was on Twitter, right? And I don't use Clubhouse, and I've been running away from it because I've explained on all our previous podcasts, so I won't even go there again. But like everything that happens on Clubhouse seems to then go on Twitter, and I saw on Twitter that on Clubhouse they were bullying doctors.
No, it was really, I shouldn't even smile about it, because the consequences are really bad, like the worst consequences that could happen. And it was just, you know, I had seen like there were lots of doctors groups, which is why I actually joined Clubhouse, because I really wanted to be like, I want to hear what they're doing in America, because there's loads of American doctors. And it was just kind of like, yeah, it wasn't a nice environment. So, and I think it's put a lot of people off kind of speaking, giving health advice,
which is a shame, because like the thing is, like, you know, our community, the Black community, we love to talk so much about we're not represented in these spaces, and then when we have people that do represent us, it's almost like we never support those people, we never really get behind those people, and we seek ways to then almost Uncle Tom them. It's like, oh, actually, it's because you're them now, you're not us, and other these people, and like almost like turn them into agents of the government and the agents of the other. And so I just feel like it's a shame, man. It's very sad.
It is, but also it's like I was kind of alluding to at the beginning, like what makes people have like followers? Like what are they? Are people? What are you influencing? Like, you know, what are you? Okay, let me just go. Yeah, that's it.
Eating fruit and being bare chest. That's it. That's all. Like, anyway, listen. Guys, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you to everybody that we're supposed to just have you guys on for 20 minutes. We've done an hour and a half. This is sorry, guys. Have you got work in the morning?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Do you know what? We gotta let them go. But thank you so much again for this. This has been so like insightful. I've got so much information off this. Is there anything else you guys want to say before you leave us?
Just thanks for having us.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Good to see you again, Ade.
People are asking for you lot to come back at a later date. So, you know, hopefully in a couple months, not too soon, but in a couple months when
not too soon.
No. I didn't mean that in the wrong way. What I meant is
things to happen first. See what happens.
Yeah. Femi, shut up, lad. Shut up. Yeah, in a couple months when things have developed, and you know, because you know, I think we just briefly we discussed this on a couple of podcasts ago that I think as people we need to kind of stop shaming people or getting at people that have decided that they want to take the vaccine. And I think a lot, you know, outside of you two medical professionals, most of us at some point have been like, no, I'm not taking the vaccine. I'm going to be one of the last. When the reality is, if you want to take the vaccine, take the vaccine. Do what you want to do. Do what you feel you need to do to make yourself feel better and comfortable. And the way things are going, listen, you know, I've got a lot of elderly people around me, family members, a lot of vulnerable people around me. And if it's one of them things, it's like, you know what, you need to take the vaccine to make sure you know, keep these people safe. Listen, I'll come down to your clinic and take it. I get you to take it though. I need you, Dr. Danso, you. Yeah. What do you call them, Femi? Igbo people. None of them.
Oyinbo. Yeah. No, I just think also to also say, I will promise you I will go in a minute, but like we do not have compulsory vaccines. That's another myth that we have to like dispel. Like it's completely if you choose not to have the vaccine, that is okay. I just would say that really understand what that means and what the implications will be. But we do not have compulsory vaccines in this country, and nothing is compulsory as well, should you choose not to have the vaccine.
And just on that, Damon, so you know, Russia have got their vaccines called Sputnik 5. China have got vaccines, right? You talk about relationships with citizens and their governments. Just thank God we're not in Russia, and thank God we're not in China. Having to take Sputnik 5 and anyway, I'll stop there before I cause it.
Don't become a target, big man. Don't become a target.
All right, guys, thanks again for joining us. That was awesome, wicked, man.
No, thank you. It's been so great to talk to you, Adwoa, and Ade. Thank you so much for answering the call.
Yes, man, that was wicked, innit?
Yeah.
Wicked, man. Yeah. That was so good. It's a shame Lee couldn't be here.
Lee's birthday drink up unhealthy thing, but it just
maybe we save it till next time he's here, innit? Because I was looking to get lit for Lee tonight. But
you know what? I actually started drinking alcohol way before this. I was like, nah, let me do Lee, let me do like, and then when he said he wasn't coming, I started drinking water. I filled up.
Well, you know what? There's probably loads for us to talk about, but I mean, we've been an hour and a half in. Chip and Stormzy. We got
we need to
inaugurations tomorrow.
Hey, what's tomorrow?
The inaugurations tomorrow.
All right, listen. Quickly, we need to speak about Chip and Stormzy, and something I put in the group the other day, which you know I stick by, and it's not necessarily just about Stormzy. I realized, you see, when rappers are beefing, I don't rate rappers that go on a next person's song to throw shots at another rapper. I don't rate that.
I hear you, but
I don't rate that.
Why does everyone think that them lines were about Chip? Why are we assuming? Why are we assuming them lines were jabs? I don't know.
They weren't clear-cut jabs. And
they weren't clear-cut jabs.
I feel like
they could be talking about anyone.
I feel like Chip is just on smoke.
Yeah.
He's in album mode. He's on smoke.
Love it.
And he's just like, he was like, you know what? The first two were like warm-ups. This one, I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna do the airline joke. I'm gonna do every joke going. I'm just
Ace, how did you feel when man was speaking in your home tongue? How did you feel? Gassed you, innit?
A couple tree bars there.
Man dropped a couple. Man said Kwasi Asem.
Kwasi Asem. I mean, like, again, I'll be honest, I'm tired of talking about this. I've been on Clubhouse. I was on Clubhouse that whole next day, and every conversation was about. I jumped into a room. Shout out to Ricardo Cherry V, and Jermaine Riley started a group. They were talking about Michael Jackson versus Whitney Houston. The group ended up talking about Chip versus Stormzy. I'm like, this, like, it's just everything goes back to this conversation, and I don't know. Stormzy is not going to reply. Let's just leave it. There's nothing that anyone can say to make him reply. It is what it is.
All right. You see that? Yeah, you're right. Can we, as the people, strip him of the title of King of Grime then?
I don't think Stormzy was ever King of Grime.
Listen,
can we strip him of that title? I think Stormzy is the most successful grime artist, like, probably ever after Dizzy. Yeah. But I don't think, and if you want at a stretch, Tiny Temper, but Tiny Temper kind of stopped doing grime very quickly. And like, but ultimately, I think Stormzy's title of being one of the most successful grime artists, stroke Black British artists that ever come out of the UK will never be taken away from him. But in terms of like actual grime, like Chip doesn't even call himself the King of Grime.
Fam, see when you're that good, you don't have no labels for yourself, blood.
It's like calling yourself, like, it's like everyone calling themselves King of New York and all of that stuff, man. It was like, come on, man. It's just a stretch, man. No one's king of nothing.
All right. Whoa. All right. The inauguration tomorrow, Ace. Like,
I'm like, if we have got any American listeners, I'm very nervous for you lot. I just feel like no, and I can't even laugh, bruv. I genuinely feel like there's going to be bloodshed tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah, I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious.
What time is it?
I don't like that. I'm not sure. I'm guessing it's a full. I don't know. I'm very worried for everybody over there.
Femi, do you know what time is it? Is it Barack Obama's one? Wasn't it something like 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something? 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Something like that?
It's in the day. I can't remember the time, but it's in the day.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I pray for them over there.
I mean, it's gonna be locked down. I'm not as worried as you, Ace. But what I find really like outrageous about it is like Donald Trump is not even turning up. He's just like, it's the first time in 150 years where the previous president is not going to be present.
I'm rating that. I'm rating the energy.
No, he's keeping the same energy. He's keeping the same energy, but I'm not rating it. You can't rate anything that guy does. But
no.
Listen, fuck it.
He free ASAP Rocky or whatever his name is. We've got to rate that as well, cuz. We've got to rate it, cuz.
Because isn't today the day when he's going to release the list of people that he's pardoning?
I don't know.
I think it must be, yeah.
And people want Joe Exotic to be pardoned, and they're saying that little.
I'll be happy for Joe Exotic to be pardoned for giving us that documentary. Yeah,
we gotta get the first cut the chat interview.
First lockdown. That was that. We had about 5 cut the chat episodes about that documentary.
Carol Baskin.
That kept us going for a minute. So if he pardons Joe Exotic, I know he's outrageous. I know Joe Exotic's a joke, man, but it will give me joy to see him out on roads.
Yeah, brand new series, brand new documentary, straight to
like I want to see part 2 of Tiger King.
All right, we'll be back next week then. I'm sure we'll have loads to talk about next week, and hopefully Lee will be joining us as well.
Happy birthday, Lee, man.
Birthday blessings to Lee. Thank you to everybody that was in the chat as well. I saw it popping off as well. Loads of people was in today. You know what? There are people that are asking for us to do clubhouse rooms, you know. Cut the chat clubhouse rooms.
Let's do it, innit?
Can't because you got an Android.
What?
You can't do it because you got an Android.
I've actually got an iPhone.
Hey, so when should we do it?
Look, when you do it?
I'll be honest. Should I be honest, guys? I'm still wary about Clubhouse, but I'm happy to join.
You know what? It can be very toxic. I'm not gonna lie.
No, it's not even about the toxicity.
No, it can. It very much can.
That I get all of that. I just, the idea of me just listening to audio of people chatting all day is scary. And also I've seen a lot of my friends that are on it are kind of addicted to it. And I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for a new one of those. I'm tired of social media. Can we talk about that next week?
Yeah, let's do it.
Are you gonna be here? Are you gonna be that tired that you just don't join?
No, come on, guys, man. I'll be there. Bless up.
All right. Till next week. Rate, subscribe, comment. Thanks again to the